You've heard it a million times, right? Eating healthy is just too expensive. A single salad can cost you 10, even 12 bucks, while junk food is cheap and everywhere. It feels like you need a trust fund just to afford groceries. But what if I told you that you could eat healthy, delicious meals for just $3 a day? For 1 week, I took on that exact challenge. And the results, and the meals I whipped up, will completely change how you think about budget-friendly eating. Let me show you exactly how I did it. Honestly, this whole challenge came from a place of pure frustration. I was tired of hearing that you have to choose between your health and your wallet. So I laid down some ground rules, a rock-solid budget of $3 per day, giving me a grand total of $21 for the entire week's food. And with food prices having jumped nearly 30% in the last few years, this felt like a massive challenge. The goal wasn't just to survive, but to eat genuinely healthy meals focused on whole foods. And no cheating. I couldn't use any fancy olive oils or spices I already owned. Everything had to be bought with that $21. My whole strategy boiled down to 3 simple things that anyone can do: plan, purchase, and prepare. I spent about an hour mapping out every single meal for the week. I scoured online flyers for sales and built my list around ingredients that are famously cheap but packed with nutrition. Then it was time to shop, and I'm not gonna lie, this was the most nerve-wracking part. $21 doesn't feel like much when you're walking into a modern grocery store. All right, this is it. The entire haul for 1 week. Total cost, $20.88. I've even got 12 cents to spare. Let's break down what I got and why. First up, the bulk goods aisle was my absolute best friend. I grabbed a big bag of rolled oats for about $1.50. Buying from the bulk bin is a huge money saver. Next, a 2-pound bag of long-grain white rice set me back about $2. But the real heroes of this budget are dried beans. I bought a 1-pound bag of black beans and a 1-pound bag of lentils for about $1.50 each. Canned beans are great for convenience, but dried beans give you way more for your money, usually yielding 2 to 3 times as much cooked food for the same price. For produce, I had to be strategic. Onions and potatoes are always a smart buy. I got 3 large onions and a 2-pound bag of potatoes for about $3 total. I found sweet potatoes on sale and snagged 2 large ones for about $1.50. Bananas are one of the cheapest fruits out there, averaging around 66 cents a pound, so a bunch of 5 cost me just over $1. For my veggies, I went frozen. A big bag of mixed peas and carrots was about $2.50. Frozen vegetables are picked and frozen at their peak, so they lock in most of their nutrients, last way longer, and prevent food waste. For a hit of protein and flavor, I got a half dozen eggs. I found a deal at my local store for around $1.50, but I know national average prices have been all over the place, and often much higher. A can of diced tomatoes was about $1. And my one luxury item, a single loaf of store-brand whole wheat bread for $2.75. And that's it. That's everything. Now the real test begins, turning this humble pile of ingredients into a week of healthy, satisfying meals. The secret to not giving up by day 2? Preparation. On Sunday night, I spent a solid hour setting myself up for success. This is the prepare part of the plan, and trust me, it's a non-negotiable step. First, I cooked the entire bag of black beans and the entire bag of lentils. It takes a little while, but it means I have protein-packed ingredients ready to go all week. Next, I cooked up a big batch of rice that would last for days. I also hard-boiled 3 of the eggs for quick snacks or to toss into a lunch. This simple act of batch cooking is a total game changer. It means when I'm hungry during the week, I don't have to start cooking from scratch. A healthy meal is just a few minutes away, which is key to fighting off the temptation of expensive takeout. Waking up on day 1 felt pretty exciting. For breakfast, I had a simple bowl of oatmeal with half a banana sliced on top. It's basic, packed with fiber and incredibly filling, a breakfast that literally costs pennies. Lunch on day 1 was a bowl of my pre-cooked rice and black beans. It wasn't fancy, but it was balanced with complex carbs and plant-based protein. For dinner, I was craving something warm and comforting, so I made a simple lentil soup. I sautéed half an onion, then added my cooked lentils, water, and some of the frozen carrots. It was surprisingly flavorful, and I had plenty of leftovers. Day 2 was pretty much a repeat, oatmeal and banana for breakfast. For lunch, I took a slice of whole wheat bread and topped it with some mashed black beans and a few slices of raw onion for a nice crunch. For dinner, I heated up another bowl of that lentil soup. 2 full days in and I felt great. I wasn't going hungry and I was actually enjoying the simplicity of it all. Okay, quick pause. We're 2 days in, I've had 6 healthy meals, and I've spent about $6. If you're finding these budget ideas helpful and you want to see more challenges where I push the limits of food and finance, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. It's free and it really helps the channel out. All right, back to the food. By day 3, the risk of getting bored is real. You can't just eat plain beans and rice all week. It was time to switch things up. Breakfast was still oatmeal. That was the rock of my week. But for lunch, I gave my leftovers an upgrade. I took my leftover rice and beans and fried them in a pan with some chopped onion until they were crispy, making a sort of delicious arroz con frijoles. It felt like a totally different meal. Dinner on day 3 was the absolute star of the week. I decided to make a hearty sweet potato and black bean chili. I sautéed the other half of my onion, tossed in the can of diced tomatoes, the rest of the black beans, and one of my diced sweet potatoes. I let that simmer for about 30 minutes. The result was this incredibly rich, savory, and slightly sweet chili. It felt like a gourmet meal, and it made enough for 2 massive dinners. On day 4, breakfast was oatmeal. Lunch was a delicious bowl of that leftover chili. For dinner, I made a simple potato and onion hash and fried one of my fresh eggs right on top. That runny yolk created the perfect, creamy sauce. It's amazing how a simple egg can make a meal feel so luxurious. Heading into the final stretch, I was feeling surprisingly good. I had a lot more energy, and I hadn't felt deprived at all. Day 5 kicked off with oatmeal and the last of my banana. Lunch was the final portion of that amazing sweet potato chili. For dinner, I made what I like to call a pantry staple stir-fry. I threw the rest of my rice in a pan with the frozen peas and carrots, a bit of onion, and scrambled in the last fresh egg. On day 6, my fresh ingredients were starting to run low. Breakfast was oatmeal, no surprise there. For lunch, I had 2 slices of toast topped with a sliced, hard-boiled egg. For dinner, I used the last of my potatoes and onions to make a simple roasted vegetable medley. It was basic, but it was still really satisfying. Day 7, the final day. I finished the last of the oatmeal for breakfast. For lunch, I used the last 2 slices of bread to make a sandwich with my final hard-boiled egg. And for my very last dinner, I created a leftover harvest soup. I threw all the remaining lentils, beans, frozen veggies, and any leftover rice into a pot with water and just let it simmer. It was a delicious combination of the week's efforts and a really hearty end to the challenge. And just like that, 7 days, $21. My final spend was $20.80, but the results were about so much more than money. Physically, I felt incredible. I had stable energy all day long, with none of those afternoon slumps you get from sugary or processed foods. Because I was cooking everything from scratch, I knew exactly what was going into my body. No hidden sugars or weird preservatives. The biggest challenge wasn't hunger, it was the mental game. This experiment forced me to be incredibly mindful about food. Every little scrap had value. I didn't waste a single thing. It really put a spotlight on how much of our modern diet is built on convenience and impulse buys. This challenge proved that with a little planning you can overcome that. But the biggest win? Feeling like I was actually in control of my food and my budget. So, what's the real takeaway from all this? This week taught me that eating healthy on a budget isn't about deprivation. It's about strategy. You don't have to go as extreme as $3 a day to see a huge difference in your grocery bill. It's the principles that matter. Plan your meals, buy whole foods and use bulk bins when you can, and prep your meals ahead of time to make the healthy choice the easy choice. Embracing staples like oats, rice, beans, and potatoes can build the foundation of an incredibly affordable and healthy diet. There's a reason these foods have been sustaining civilizations for centuries. They're cheap, nutritious, and unbelievably versatile. By just applying a few of these ideas, you could easily cut your food bill in half without sacrificing your health. The power to eat well isn't determined by the size of your wallet, but by the quality of your plan. What are your go-to budget meals? I genuinely want to know. Leave a comment down below. I read every single one and I'm always looking for new delicious ideas. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.